RMC was a regular corporate slave who was always working 78 hours a week. But he suddenly finds himself reincarnated in a fantasy world. This is usually a good thing to be reincarnated. And it was sort of good for RMC too. However, he reincarnated in the body of a noble who is a total illiterate. To make things worse, he doesn't have any special abilities either. Nonetheless, he gets to enjoy a delicious meal and spend a good time while bathing, because he has maids tending to him. He is termed the son of a count, who does nothing but eat and play all day. He is enjoying himself so much that he doesn't even care to ask the name of the world where he has found himself. While the maids are bathing him, they tell him to go to bed early, because his brothers will be returning the next day. Our MC is confused when the maid says this, and the maids believe that he is joking around. They tell him that his brothers are Leo Antonio of the Palacio family. The moment he heard the Palacio family, he realized that it sounded pretty familiar. The moment it clicks in his brain, he pushes his head into the water in frustration, because he has somehow found himself in Psychedelia. Back in his past life, there was a game that he managed to find time to play, and this game was Psychedelia. It was a turn-based RPG where no matter which route the player took, the moment the 5 great sins appeared, the kingdom, the nobles, the cities, and everything came crashing down. The 5 great sins, which are what everyone knows, are greed, wrath, sloth, pride, and obsession. These 5 laid waste to everything. And among the destroyed houses is the Palacio County. The eldest son of the house is Leo, and he is known as the king of prostitution, while the second son, Tonio, is known as the drug king. The family was a bunch of trashy nobles who appeared in a side quest before the main story even began. RMC cannot believe that he just found himself in the very first place that was crushed by the 5 great sins. In addition to how things are not going so well for him, he is reincarnated as the 3rd son of Palacio County, a mob villain, Elon Palacio. Elon lies on his bed watching in horror, while also praying to be sent back to his old trashy life, because it most likely is better than the fate he is about to suffer. With tears in his eyes, he wonders about the purpose of a life that would be snuffed away from him. In 10 years, in fact, he believes that it feels worse than having his wages withheld from him. For an entire 6 months, he wonders why, as a reincarnated person, he doesn't even get a single perk to help save his life. Suddenly it dawns on him that he has a perk at his disposal, and this is knowing about the contents of the game. That takes place 10 years in the future. To him, this is basically the same thing as knowing the future too, since he already knows this. He believes that he can get rid of the cause of the destruction before it even happens. With this in mind, he decides to try and rehabilitate the 5 great sins. For the sake of a peaceful, noble life, they are nothing but kids as they are. So he believes it should still be possible. 2 months after he decided on this, he received his personal knight, Yebin, in his office. Yabin informs him that he has managed to rescue orphans and place them in an orphanage that he pointed him to, and among them was a girl named Yusha. Alone is pleased to hear this news, and this just confirms his suspicion that Yabin is truly capable. Yabin is confused whether he is getting complimented or not, because it is hard to tell with his expressionless face. Alone agrees with him and tries to let off a desperate smile, but this only makes him look even worse. This is pretty hard for him, since his original face was quite expressive, but it appears that his emotions don't show on his current face. Nonetheless, Yabin thanks Alone for the compliment. Apparently, betrayal is rampant in the game, but Yebin is a rare top-tier supporting character who doesn't betray his master. The moment Alan found him, he hired him without hesitation. Yebin then confirms from Alone that the raid was to rescue UTI, and he says yes. Yebin finally understands why Alone is interested in Yusha, because even he, who has been a mercenary for many years, Yusha is not an ordinary child. Basically, she was pretty strong, leaving Yebin to wonder why she would allow herself to get captured easily. Alone then asks Yebin why he didn't bring the girl to the estate, since it would be easier. Alone commends Yebin for the observation, and though it seems like he is letting her power go to waste, leaving her at the orphanage is all part of Alone's plan. Yusha Blodia is a member of the grotesque blood tribe, who wields power from a contract with an indescribable being from another dimension. Yusha later grew up to become the sin of wrath among the 5 great sins. She was given a title that made her seem like a monster that deserved nothing but death. She was a monster who caused hundreds of deaths, but if she manages to grow up peacefully, she won't take part in the destruction. To Alone, he has managed to remove the first landmine, and since he can't give his real reason, he decides to give Yebin a fake reason for leaving UTI. There Alone comes up with a stupid reason, and Yebin believes him. Alone mentions that the time is not yet right, and he tells Yebin to make sure that no one else knows about what they are doing. He also orders Yebin to provide anything that the orphanage needs for them. Alan then passes a letter to Yebin, telling him to give it to Yusha. Yebin asks if the letter is important, and Alan says it is a letter to help Yusha settle in. Alan believes that the letter would be great to calm her down, since she went through a harsh human experiment. Yebin is impressed that his master even wrote a letter, and he promised to safely deliver it. Even though he doesn't know if the letter will calm Yusha down, Alan believes that he has to try first. Apparently, he mixed the real message inside the pleasantries that he wrote in the letter. This was something he heard dozens of times while replaying the game. It was a calming message from the Archbishop that helps with the sin of wrath. However, this message came too late in the game, but Alan believes that sending UTI the message early should help put her in the right direction. Alan cannot believe that he is trying to befriend a monster, but since they worship a being from another world, he believes that it should work. When Yusha receives the letter, she takes a moment to read it. And in that moment, Yebin can feel the immense magical power coming from her body, which is quite absurd. She is basically a strange child, totally devoid of emotions. Yusha then asks Yebin if Alone was truly the one who sent the letter, and with fear creeping through his body, Yebin says yes. UTI lets off a really terrifying aura before asking Yebin why Alone himself didn't show up. Yebin cannot believe that the girl is already at the peak level at her age, which is why her mana can be visualized. Yebin then tells UTI that Alone said the time is not right yet. After hearing this, UTI finally calms down, and this is also thanks to the hidden message that Alone put in the letter. Yusha knows that it is something only someone worthy of being her master can know of. With a joyous face and overwhelming aura, she mentions that she finally understands her master's will. Meanwhile, Alone in his bed is thinking of how he can make sure that he gets the next person on the list to help increase his seemingly short life. Soon afterward, Alone is in the library trying to get clues on the third sin when Yebin rushes in to tell him that he has managed to rescue the second sin that he mentioned, even though he looks utterly exhausted. Alone asks Yebin if he treated the kid right. Yebin assures him that he did everything he asked. After he rescued the kid from the illegal slave market, suddenly Alone's trash big brother Tonio enters the room and wastes no time, using Alone as his footmat. He expresses his shock that someone as dull as Alan has decided to read books in the library. Alan keeps mute, but this pisses Tonio off, and he screams at Alan, telling him to give a reply when he is being talked to by his elders. Alan cannot believe that the former owner of the body managed to survive this long, because Tonio is always picking fights. Alone would have preferred to fight back at him, but he knows better. He quickly bows his head like a slave, telling Tonio that he would like to simply excuse himself from the library, since his big brother wants to use it. Tonio laughs at Alone, saying he has finally known his place. Suddenly a knife comes flying toward them, and it narrowly misses Tonio's head. It turns out that the knife came directly from the eldest son, Leo. Leo talks about how he doesn't want any racket early in the morning. The tension between the two immediately toughens up as they start threatening to kill each other. Alone gently crawls away from the two, since he doesn't want any of their beef. The family was nothing but a side character that got wiped out very early. And even though they are a powerful family, the two trash brothers were always locked in a fierce battle for who was going to become the head of the house. One is known as the king of the flesh, while the other is the king of drugs. Basically, the two are the kings of the underworld, and no one who wants to live a good life will dare mess with them. Alone manages to crawl out of the room, while the two are turning everything upside down. Alone figures out that the best thing for him is to live as an incompetent trash if he ever wants to live long. Alone returns to his room and gets on his couch to rest. On the other hand, Yvonne wonders how such an incompetent-looking person like Alone is able to uncover human experiments. Alone is someone who looks really frail, who can't even take care of himself. But for some reason he knows about secret foreign affairs. Nonetheless, he considers Alone a really peculiar person. The last child he rescued is considered really dangerous, with powers that are considered to be world-ending. Basically, he was rescued in the kingdom of Kalion, where there was an illegal slave market. With this, Alone has been able to rescue the second Syndius, After Dias was sold into slavery, he was abused and passed around endlessly. Because of this, he ended up becoming the sin of sloth, which is among the 5 great sins. After Dias lost it, he wiped out kingdoms in the most horrific way that one wouldn't even think is possible. Even most players were traumatized by how cruel Dias was in terminating his enemies. Because of how dangerous he was, Alone told Yabin to treat him gently. Yabin then asks Alone if the letter he sent to Udiah is about the second child, and Alone confirms this. In addition to the important message in the recent letter, he also added extra important information to it. Alone had told Yusha to take care of the child because he was frail, and just as her master ordered. Yusha did the right thing. She walks up to Dias to help him out of his desperate mental situation, while telling him that he has been chosen by a great person. Yusha told Dias that he would get his revenge against those who wronged him if he could serve Alone with the utmost loyalty. With Yusha's help, Dias is able to unleash his power, but also keep it under control. Alone, on the other hand, is panicking because he doesn't know where the third boss is. Suddenly, Yebin enters the room to tell Alone that the second son, Tonio, is dead. This genuinely shocks Alone because Tonio shouldn't be dead. Yet in no time a funeral is arranged for Tonio, and even in the hall their father is seen having fun with girls, as if he is not bothered that his son just died. On the other hand, Alone finds it really suspicious that Tonio died from an accidental fall, because it didn't happen that way in the game. In the game, Leo struggled before he could finally kill Tonio. However, things are different, because Alan can clearly see Leo laughing over Tonio's corpse. Nonetheless, Alan believes that the only thing he needs to do is make sure he rounds up the 5 great sins. A year later, everything at the house seems to be more stable than ever, since there is no cause for succession. And Leo has also taken over his brother's drug trade. During that 1 year, Alone basically became pen friends with Udiah. They are always sending letters to each other. And because of how good everything is, the orphanage keeps getting a long list of donations. Yabin then tells Alone that he has found a clue concerning what he is looking for. Alone is pleased to hear this, because it basically means an ancient record about the third boss. Alone is pleased that he has finally found the third boss. To Alone, it's a peaceful evening. But the same cannot be said at a certain drug distribution site. 2 high-ranking officers under Leo arrive at the warehouse to find dozens of their members drenched in their own pool of blood. The ones still alive begin killing themselves, as if they've lost control of their bodies. They push knives into their throats in the most horrific ways. The 2 officers soon find themselves sharing the same fate as their counterparts too. It turns out that the person behind this is Dias, and he is being supervised by UTI. After they are done wiping out the bad guys, Dias asks Yusha if their actions even mean a thing, and Yusha assures him that it does. Yusha asks Dias if he pities the bad guys, but he says no, since they are the ones causing people to do substances. He is only curious about what it means to their revenge plan. Yuda then assures him that it sets the stage for the return of their master, and since he is coming, they can't allow his throne to be in disarray. Deos finally understands everything Yuda has been preaching to him, and before they leave the scene, they make sure that the warehouse is utterly destroyed. They leave a blue moon sign on the grounds of the scene, as they consider themselves the Blue Moon, who are Alone's blade 1 more year later. Everything appears to be going smoothly, as Yebin comes to report to him that he has managed to save the 5th kid too. The 5th has also been sent to the orphanage, and Alone cannot contain his joy that he managed to pull off his biggest worry because of his hard work. Alone doesn't mind feeding Yebin with the best goodies that he can get his hands on. To find the 3rd sin, greed, was the hardest, but they were able to pull it off thanks to his gamer knowledge. Yebin did everything he could to make sure that everything worked out well in the end. Alone then tells Yebin that he is free to rest for a while, because he has been running around for quite some time. Yebin asks him if the orphanage mission is done, and he says yes. Yebin is relieved to hear this, and he asks Alan if he isn't happy because he doesn't look like he is, but Alan assures him that he is. In fact, he claims that he is currently smiling, even though his face says the opposite. Yebin has no choice but to go with what Alone claimed. Alone lies on the ground, with the relief that everything is going the way he wants it, because the kids only became evil thanks to their evil past. He made it his mission to rescue all of them, and he didn't think he would be able to pull it off before. Alone then asks Yabin about the status of the orphanage, and Yabin presents him with a letter. Yabin assures him that everything is going smoothly, just as expected apparently. The children were initially like broken dolls, but they have somehow managed to brighten up. Alone is relieved to hear this, since there won't be any reason for them to hire caretakers. Alone is proud of Yusha because he didn't expect her to be able to handle the pressure of taking care of the kids. Alan suspects that it is easy for her because of her background setting, which is tied to the orphanage. Alan then tells Yebin that with everything he has seen, Yusha is a good kid from the letter. She assures Alan that he has nothing to worry about because everything has been settled. Elon mentions just how proud he is to see the kids growing up properly, since all 5 are growing up really well. Elon concludes that the environment plays a huge role too. Yebin then asks Elon when he plans to meet the kids, since he said there would be a time for it. Deep down, Alone has no intention of meeting the kids in person. He knows it would be good to meet them in person, so that they can get closer. But he is terrified of their personalities that he has seen while playing the game. Nonetheless, he believes that it should be fine, since he rescued them before their awakening. Alone then lies to Yebin, telling him that he might try to meet the kids later in the future, now that he has pulled off the rescue. Alone believes that the next thing on his list is to learn a bit of self-defense skills, since magic requires talent. Alone has just what it takes to learn it. Yebin then asks Alone if he has heard of the Blue Moon. Alone replies that he hasn't, and Yebin explains that they are a group that has recently gained popularity by hunting down criminal organizations, since it sounds like cleaning up trash. Alone doesn't see any reason why it should be a problem, since the Blue Moon is not part of the game story. That Alan knows, he believes that it will go away in no time. Yebin then drops the bombshell, saying the group has killed nobles, which is why he believed Alan might know them. Upon hearing this, Alan tells Yebin to start sleeping in the room close to his. Meanwhile, the leader of Blue Moon, Yusha, is asking her members about the week's report. Xialing, the sin of pride, reports that she has taken care of the slave traders' heads before eliminating them. She promised to let them live if they could guess her eye color, but for obvious reasons they couldn't, which ultimately led to her killing them all. The sin of greed. Ryan then mentions that all the bodies were buried cleanly, and for the illegal experiments radon. The sin of obsession has taken care of them all. Yusha is glad to hear this, since everything appears to be going just the way she wants it. She commends all of them, saying that they all exist for the glory of the Blue Moon. Just then, Redon mentions that there is a slight problem. The head of Avalon, the organization that they are targeting, is being ruled by Leo, the Count's eldest son. Apparently, Raiden discovered a dangerous document when they were wiping out Avalon's base in the south. Basically, Leo is planning to terminate Alone after their father dies. When UTI sees this, rage takes her over. 2 years later, Count Palacio, who has been sick, dies. The official report mentions that he died of cardiac arrest, but given his history of drug abuse, it is obvious what killed him. During the funeral proceedings, Leo learns that the Blue Moon has struck his business yet again. Alone hears his brother and his men talking about Blue Moon, and realizes that they have finally started taking the organization seriously momentarily. The Count's funeral, with 0 mourners, ended very quietly after the funeral. Yabin asks Alone what his next plan is. Yabin reminds him that by next year, Leo will inherit the title. Surprisingly, Alone tells Yabin that they are leaving the estate. This shocks Yabin, and Alone mentions that they are going south, to a remote village called Rodmel. This is a remote village in the southern territory of the Palacio County. Without wasting time, Alone and Yabin got out of the mansion, and they were enjoying themselves in Rodmel, until they were forced to return to the mansion just 3 days later. Something shocking and surprising has happened, and this is the death of the eldest son, Leo. Alone cannot believe that he is already back at the estate. In just 3 days, Alone wonders why the eldest son is dead, barely 3 days after he left. The cause of his death was a blade strike to the heart. However, the question of who killed him remains unanswered. Later on, Alone asks Yabin if he found anything unusual, and he says yes. Just then, Yabin asks Alone if he was the one who wiped out Avalon in one night. This question shocks Alone, and he finally realizes why the other nobles and guests present are scared to look him in the eye. On the day that Alone was going to Rodmel, Yebin asked Alone why he was not going to a city instead of a remote village. Deep down, Alan knows that the only place he can finalize his plan is in Rodmel, which is why he is heading there, since he has saved the 5 great sins and prevented the world from getting destroyed. He believes that Rodmel is the right choice, since it has no connection to the original story. In addition, it even has a palatial villa there. This is a separate house built apart from the main family residence. It is basically the perfect place to live leisurely as a noble. The only answer he gives Yebin is that there is a reason for everything. Yebin is tired of hearing this, as he tells Alone that he is always brushing things aside. But since he can't get the words out of his mouth, he just decides to let it be. It turns out that Leo was already planning to kill him, but since he is already leaving by himself, he decides to hold off on it. Alan even bows to him like he is scared before leaving, and all of these convince Leo to let Alan go. Nonetheless, he decides to tell his assistant Alman to follow Alan's carriage. Alman then asks Leo if he wants to kill Alone by asking him to follow the carriage. Alman wants to confirm if he really wants to kill Alone. Leo is shocked to hear this, because Alman has always been the one who follows any order, without a word of complaint. Leo is surprised that Alman is asking questions. Leo screams at Alman, telling him that his only job is to follow the orders. But Alman suddenly pushes his sword into his chest. Leo is stunned, leaving him to ask Alman why he betrayed him. Alman smiles, telling Leo that he likes playing games. Alman mentions that he has been playing along all this time, and it turns out that he is not really Alman, but Raiden, the sin of obsession. Radan tells Leo before finishing him off that no one touches their master, the Great Moon. He mentions that they might be restricted from carrying out missions, but when it comes to the safety of their master, there is no question about this. Redon reveals that he intentionally waited for him to say he wanted to hurt Alone before finally making his move to take him off the board. Redon says he has been waiting for a whole 2 years, just for him to make the wrong move. While he is bleeding out, Leo tells Redon that he won't be able to escape from his men. Radan then replies that he just made the extinction of Avalon his prime purpose. With what he just said, Radan shakes his head for Leo, saying that the Great Moon Alone really did give him a chance to live, but he ruined it as usual. Alone woke up to a beautiful morning, which he considers paradise because he can wake up anytime he wants, eat whenever he wants, and enjoy his life as a noble. Alone is enjoying himself so much that he thinks of starting a toast business. He is busy munching on delicious food when Yebin enters the room to tell him that he just got a message. Alone's food immediately becomes bitter when he reads the letter, to find out that he is requested to return to the estate because his brother has just died. With just those simple words, his so-called paradise ended in just 3 days. In grief, he returned to the estate, and he noticed that everyone was reacting to him in a very weird way. This is when Yebin asks him when he became a mastermind who was able to destroy Avalon. It finally dawns on Alan that he has found himself in some really crazy simulation. Alan then asks Yabin to explain the situation of how he became a mastermind. To him, Yabin simply replies that he is the only one who stands to gain anything from the chaos. Yabin continues by saying Leo was murdered after they left the compound, which is a perfect alibi for him. In addition, this ultimately promotes him to the position of being the heir, with no rivals. Yebin mentions that since Avalon is gone, Alone would have no one causing him trouble. With all of these put together, Yebin says Alone has become the mastermind of the county. Yebin also glazes himself, saying he is a sword master and he is under Alone's command. Alone is ultimately confused by all of these, forcing him to ask Yebin if he's having fun, since he seems to be dancing around. Elon sits down to think about everything that has happened. Racking his brain, he doesn't think there is any organization strong enough to be able to take Avalon down. In just one night, suddenly, it dawns on him that Yi Ban once told him that there is an organization that hunts other organizations. Alan thinks the culprits might have been the Blue Moon. Yebin then tells Alan that with the information he got from the guild, there is no indication that Blue Moon is involved. Basically, the Blue Moon organization never leaves bodies, but they leave a mark. Avalon officials, on the other hand, were killed with the use of a sword. Alan finally realizes why they picked him as mastermind, because he has an assistant who wields a sword. Since the Blue Moon didn't appear before the main story, and there is no indication that they are the culprits, Alone starts to wonder who it might be. Later on, during their usual meetings, UTI asks her colleagues if there were any traces of their involvement in what happened, but they assure her that there were none. The only thing they left behind were stacks of bodies, and they did everything the way Udia wanted it. Udia smiles because her plan worked out so well. This basically ended Avalon. the powerful organization that once held the Asteria Kingdom to ransom. All it took Yusha and her colleagues was 5 days to bring ruin to Avalon. Redon then tells Yusha that the cleanup is not entirely complete. Yusha asks him what he meant by this, and he explains that he found more nobles who are connected to Avalon. Apparently, the Altea Duchy appears to be the most involved culprit in everything. Without thinking twice, Yusha tells the group that it is required of them to quietly remove the threat. Yusha then asks her friends about the Information Guild, and they assure her that the guild doesn't have anything that links them to the whole annihilation. Basically, all the other guilds share the same view as the Information Guild, because they are all calling it hell created by the Sword's Master. Ryan then asks Yusha if they should maintain surveillance, and she tells them to do this. Yusha tells them how important it is that their master does not find out about everything happening. Deos mentions that Leo, who is Alan's brother, was the one who targeted him first. Yusha then says they can't justify what they did, since they didn't get an order from Alan. Yudaha reminds them that they are a sword, and they are not allowed to think on their own. Yudaha says the blue moon only moves by order given, and in addition, she warns them that their master knows everything. With this in mind, she urges them to always live to the standards set by their master, and never disappoint him. Davis is surprised that Yudia, who is overwhelmingly powerful, is scared of Alone finding out about their exploits. Nonetheless, Davis cannot argue, because everything they are doing is for Alone. A month later, Alone finds himself stuck with several chores. This is not the kind of life he envisioned for himself, but the life that chose him. Because of Leo's death, Alone has earned himself a bulk load of resentment. Surprisingly, Leo's death is not supposed to happen until 6 years later. Because of the entire family's sudden death, all the work fell back to Alan. To make things worse, everyone is working so hard and delivering their projects right on time. Alone remembers that during his father's tenure, they were all working like bugs. Unknown to him, the servants and workers are all working really hard to make sure that they don't get on his bad side and end up in a ditch somewhere. Alone wishes that the servants would just sort things out themselves without involving him in it. Later on, Yeben commends Alone for reaching the 2nd tier of his magic practice in the space of 2 years. Yeben tells Alone that he possesses incredible talent, since it usually takes about 4 years of training to reach the 2nd tier. To avoid arguing with Yeben, Alone admits that he is talented when it comes to magic. Basically, Alan was putting everything he knew into magic defense because he was nervous. The technique he is also learning requires a lot of magic control, but Alan doesn't see himself getting good at it. Initially, Alone was excited because he thought once the plan was over, there would be no more danger with this. He could self-study without stress. However, with the recent call for security, Alone has realized that his mana hole is really small. Basically, the mana hole one is born with is like an athlete's body time, which is fixed from birth. And when it comes to Alone's mana hole, it is quite small. It is too small because even his training can't cover it. Alan is thinking about his stressful life when Yeben informs him that a dance invitation has just arrived. Alan is surprised that he has been invited to a party dance, but he has no choice but to attend. Upon stepping into the hall, Alan complains that he is already tired. The party is a regular ball for networking among nobles, which is held in the southern region of the Asteria Kingdom. Alone also thinks of building connections with the ball party, since he will be the count soon enough. Alone figures out that having a good connection with other nobles might ensure his security in the future. Alone makes his move, but all of the nobles start to avoid him, like he is some sort of disease. Eben comforts him, telling him not to be upset. But Alone is not even upset. Alone already expected something like this to happen. Alone tells Yeben that he needs to excuse himself. Alone walks over to the drink table while thinking about his move. Even though he is being avoided for being the black sheep, Alone is prepared to solve his current situation with the social skills that he claims he has secretly practiced. Upon picking up a wine cup, he walks to a lady while talking about how nice the drink is. He tells the woman that he would love to get some bottles to take home, and he tries to end the conversation with a smile. But just as expected, his smile looks horrible, with fear creeping through the lady's body. She tells Alan that she is going to tell her father to arrange it, and before Alan can say anything else, she runs off. Alan finds himself stranded, while the other guests in the house start whispering about how Alan must have threatened the innocent lady, forcing her to run away. In fact, they believe that Alan is worse than his late brothers. Alan tries to delude himself, from the reality that the lady is scared of him, and he concludes that the lady must be shy. Yibon walks up to console Alan, and he mentions all the sacrifices he went through to try and make sure that everything comes out good. It finally dawns on him that the Palacio name is more dreadful than he even thought. Since the rumors have claimed that he had his brothers killed, he has automatically become the one person everyone doesn't want to associate with. Tired of the room, Alone tells Yebin that he needs to get some air. Meanwhile, Alone is being watched by a peculiar red-headed woman. Alone is reminiscing about his trash life on the balcony when a strange girl shows up, asking to speak with Alone. Alone is shocked that someone just spoke to him, and when he looks closely, it turns out to be Loria, the third daughter of the Altia ducal house. Alan is not entirely surprised that someone from the house is speaking to him. Alan remembers that the Altia family is one of the great villains of the game. They are basically the black sheep of the North. Alan figures out that whoever chose to speak to him is not an ordinary person. However, Alone wonders why he doesn't remember the girl, since he doesn't think he saw her while playing the game. Just then Loria goes straight to the point, telling Alone that she needs his strength because she will soon be assassinated. Alan is shocked to hear this, and the girl continues by saying that up until that moment, she has been under her father's protection because she is the daughter of his mistress. However, her father has fallen ill, and she fears that her sisters are going to terminate her. Alan finally realizes that it is all about survival, and then it dawns on him that he doesn't remember the girl because she died before the main story of the game began. Loria continues by pleading with Alone to help her, and Alone gives his reply saying he is not going to help. Loria continues by saying she is not asking for his help for free. Loria promises Alone half of the duchy if he can help her. Alone ignores her, saying he is leaving. Alone admits that Loria is in a tight position, but at the same time, he will also be putting himself in danger if he helps her, even if he wants to help. Alone knows that he can't because, unlike the rumor, he is just a talentless dude. Just as he is about to walk through the door, Alone's conscience stops him, and he turns around to talk to Loria. He tells her that something good will happen for her, and deep down, he hopes that she actually meets someone who can help her. Meanwhile, the Sins observing Alone have noticed that Loria has approached him, and they deduce that telling UTIA is the best option before acting. Ryan then tells Diaz that he might not need to report the situation, since Loria is the only Altia who is not affiliated with the bad things that they are doing. This in turn excludes her from being Radon's target. Deos agrees that this makes things easier, because the other Altir will be dealt with. Ryan mentions that Yusha has told them to make sure that all information flow is cut off, to make sure that the Avalon incident never gets to Alone. Alone is walking through the hall by his lonesome self when he is suddenly approached by the redhead lady. Alone is initially confused whether he is the one being greeted or someone else. Alone nervously replies to the greetings, and with the way the girl is walking and her aura, Alone can see that she is a shady person. Alone tries to remember who she is, because he has definitely seen her face in the game. In addition, he figures out that whoever talks to him isn't normal. Alone finally remembers her name, Kalia Zenonia, and he walks up to her to offer his greetings. Kalia is shocked to see that Alone actually knows who she is. Alone tells the lady that he knows her, since she is quite a famous person. Apparently, there are 3 great houses in the kingdom of Asteria. The house to the north is House Altia. The house in the east is House Palacio, and in the west is the degenerates of Zenonia. It turns out that Kalia is the eldest daughter of Count Zenonia, if Palacio is considered a gang. Zenonia is a more refined corporate-style syndicate. Even though he needs some noble connection to live a peaceful life, Alone fears that he shouldn't involve himself with the Zenonians. Alone continues with the compliment by telling Kalia that she is famous because she is beautiful, and Kalia thanks him for the compliment. Kalia says she would like to talk more, and Alone agrees, but mentions that there are lots of eyes watching them. Deep down, Alone just wants the lady to let him go his way. Kalia smiles, saying Alone is just as the rumor said, but she lets him know that she would like to see him again. Alone is surprised by this, leaving him to wonder what the lady meant by it. Meanwhile, Diaz and Ryan are still monitoring the situation, and it appears that something more concerning has come up. Diaz tells Ryan that there is a weird dude who is tailing Alone, since there are no direct orders concerning this. Ryan suggests that they observe, but move to elimination if needed. Later on, Alone and Yabin head to a canyon that Alone has reportedly been looking for. Yabin is skeptical about the whole thing, and he tries telling Alan that the insides of the canyon are dark, even though they are in broad daylight. Alan, on the other hand, is rejoicing that he has finally found his objective. He prays that he is at the right site, because he might as well fall into depression if it turns out to be the wrong one. Upon entering, Alan is relieved to see that it is exactly what he was looking for. Basically, it was easy to find in the game, unlike what he just went through to know its location. Alone apparently came to the canyon because of a certain labyrinth, the Labyrinth of Whispers. If he can solve the riddles in 8 chambers, he stands a chance to win a valuable artifact as his reward, since he still remembers the whole walkthrough. He believes that it is time he savored the joy of level 1 grinding. Alan is blown away when standing at the entrance of the labyrinth, since it is his first time seeing it in real life. Yeben then mentions that the canyon appears to have been built by hand, leaving him to question how Alan knows the place too. Alone casually mentions that he comes here often, and this shocks Yeben, realizing that Yeben is already overthinking it. Alone tells him that he is only kidding. Upon stepping into the labyrinth, they encounter several monsters hanging from the roof, waiting for them to get the riddle wrong so that they can be crushed. While Yeben is freaking out, Alone remains calm, and this shocks Yeben. Alone just focuses on the riddle, while Yeben is racking his brain on how he has failed several times in trying to figure Alone out. Yeben thinks deeply about it, and he realizes that none of the missions that they have conducted have ever been related to each other. From taking down an evil organization to saving a slave, to paying off someone's debt, to helping an orphan and several others like it. This makes Yeben question how Alone knows the labyrinth, when Alone doesn't even leave the estate. Just then Alone mentions that he has gotten the riddle right, but they need to wait for the giant hand to finish its thing. Even though Yeben is curious about Alone, he knows that something good always comes out of every mission that they undergo. The door starts to open, leaving Yeben to wonder what exactly Alone is planning again. When the door finally opens, they are met with countless treasures sitting in the large room. Standing in the distance is a gauntlet with rings on it. Apparently Alone's only mission is the black ring on one of the fingers. Yeben is surprised to see that this is their only goal, because it appears to be totally useless. Alone retrieves the ring and realizes that it is too big for his hand, but he is taking it nonetheless. He tells Yeben to drop the treasures that he has packed, because they would only bring trouble to them. As they leave the labyrinth, Alone assures Yeben that there is nothing dangerous on the way out. Alone is thankful for the walkthrough because it made things easy for him. Momentarily, they run into a bit of a problem. A bunch of stone golems have blocked the way, and Yeben is already thinking of how he can get Alone out of there. Just then Alone tells him that he has nothing to worry about, because he will handle the golems. Yi-Ban tries to tell Alone that escape is their #1 priority, no matter what it is that he is planning. Alone walks toward the golems while raising the finger, holding the ring. Yi-Ban is worried that Alone is going to get himself killed, because his Tier 2 magic is useless against the golems. Once he is close enough to the golems, Alone uses the ring to activate the constraint instruction. Time stops, and Alone finds himself in an empty dimension, where the system tells him that he has 2 constraints that he can enact. Alone remembers that in the game, his current position has a selection window. Staring into the abyss is a giant face, and Alone believes the reward for clearing the labyrinth is the constraint instruction. As the name implies, it is an absorption-type artifact that imposes restrictions on the user in exchange for power. The voice that just spoke to Alone made everything feel very real. Alone then mentions his first constraint. After reciting the spell, the being asks him what he plans to gain, and Alone mentions that he would like to twist the laws of the world a little further. Once he has laid his claim, the system grants his first constraint, and for his second constraint, he follows the same procedure, and the system asks him what he seeks. By this, Alan simply replies that his request remains as just before. The being takes a minute before answering Alan, and Alan fears that he has messed things up. Alan knows that choosing both seals and words for the constraint gives the highest magic attack power. While he was playing the game, he mastered all the hand signs and phrases, which means that his request is supposed to be granted. Just then the being grants his request, and the voice tells him that he is considered really important to have remembered everything related to the Forgotten God. The voice then tells him to carry on the will of the Forgotten God, leaving Alone confused after the being is done talking. The ring on Alone's hand gets absorbed, which is a sign that the constraint worked successfully. Just then Elon returns to the real world, when Yeben is trying to get him out of the golem's way. However, Elon resorts to his magic power, but even after using his entire mana, the sphere of lightning that he created remains small. Since his own magic power is trash, he decides to try out the constraint's power by giving it the price that it demands.